Welcome back to another episode of My Network is My Net Worth. It's your guy, J Hall Agent, my brother, Rel Purnell, aka Carsho Rel. Back to touch on another topic that matters, which is failure.
Yeah.
This show is big on entrepreneurship, even though we respect all career types and forms. But we want to talk about why the statistics, real life, everything leads to the fact that entrepreneurs fail at a high rate. So we want to get into it. So I'm gonna let you kick it off, bro, and let's
Uh,
start off
yeah.
on your stance. In your opinion, let's start. First question I'll ask, and we'll ping pong. What is failure to you in a business? What is it defined as to you?
Man, you only fail when you give up. Bottom line. When you still in the race, you still running.
Okay.
So, when you give up and when you're done, when you throw in the towel, that's failure. When you're down and out, maybe slow at the bottom, struggling, that's not failure. You're just going through, as I mentioned in the last episode, the ebbs and flows of life, business. It happens. You fail when you give up. So that's my first thing. That I'm gonna put down on today's episode. Giving up too quick. Ebbs and flows is gonna happen. You just gotta stick with it, make some changes if you need to, and just keep running a marathon. You know.
That's real. That's real. I love that answer, and that's almost kind of similar to my answer, which is, I mean, it's probably the same because, so to me, historically, I always felt like failure from a business perspective was always seen as a business closing, right? Like if you got a restaurant and your restaurant closes, that's considered as failure, right? I think now failure is failure is based on, like you said, I think a lot of it is giving up, but I also think it's based on what your goal was from the journey from the beginning. Because we have to separate failure from being reinvented, right? Like if I have, like I know business owners that had food trucks that went to brick and mortar restaurants that went back to food trucks, right? Now, technically, someone might say, "Yo, your restaurant failed." No,
That's
because a mobile restaurant is just as successful, right? So is that truly failure? Because to your point, you didn't give up. You may have changed and diversified what you do, right? And I think the first thing that we have to do is, to your point, I think entrepreneurs got to understand that failure is giving up, but also we got to separate, right? If you started out with a goal and nothing of it happened the way you want it to happen, and you shut it all down, if you want to call that failure, that's fine. If you do something different in your business, you have a transportation business, right? If your transportation business starts selling merch and the merch don't sell, that has nothing to do with the business being a failure. It just means that the merch didn't sell. So,
absolutely,
you know what I'm
absolutely.
saying? You just stop selling the merch and then you transition it back to what you do. Okay. So, next question for you is, so we talked about, from your perspective, failure is giving up. All right.
Mhm.
In your opinion, is it easier to keep going, or is it easier to give up?
That's a good question, man. I think that depends on the person. I think really that depends on the person, man. I can't answer that for anybody else, but myself. Um, I think the easier it's always easier to throw in the towel than to keep going, especially when things aren't going your way. Um, Also, what I think is, to your point, we kind of got to break down failure as a business owner or failure as an entrepreneur. Because now that you say that, I think and again, I can only speak on myself and my business endeavors that I had over the past. Um, Other things that I did in the past that didn't pan out to the way I wanted to pan out, I might have shut it down and pivoted, but I always pivoted to the next thing, and the next thing always was bigger. It might have fizzled, and then you pivot to the next thing, or whatever the case might be. So I think that that's also something to point out as far as failure. Are you getting out of business as a business owner, or are you getting out of business as being an entrepreneur and giving up completely as an entrepreneur and not going back into business at all, to anything?
Great point. And that ties into the reason why I asked the question. For those watching, it may seem a little bit of a jumbled kind of like, where do you go on with it? But the reason why I'm asking it for it is that we also, the same way we got to redefine failure, we have to redefine giving up, right? Like, I have people that I've known for a long time, maybe not super close to, but just came across them in business that I would categorize as serial entrepreneurs, right? So they could have a catering business, they could have a cleaning business, they could have a t-shirt printing business, right? Maybe the t-shirt printing business ain't doing as much because people ain't getting t-shirts or hoodies printed, so they stopped doing that, but they still doing other business. That's that. Like, I don't quantify that as giving up. You know what I
No,
mean?
not at
Because
all.
it's because you're pivoting. But technically, if we look at it from the old school mind of entrepreneurship, if there's something that you do to generate revenue as a business and you stop doing it, some consider that as being given up. Now, here's the other side of it. The other side of it is being strategic, right? And understanding what makes sense long term. So, for example, I'm not a big fan of it because I'm one of their consumers, but Netflix is gonna finally have ads on their streaming service, or arrange it where now you're gonna have to pay a certain amount of money in order to have the membership that doesn't have ads. If not, if you got the basic package, it's gonna have ads, right? And they came out very strong, very early on in their process. Like, that's not what we're gonna do. That's not what we stand for, right? But after some failures, they spent a lot of money on certain movies or certain TV shows that didn't get the level of viewership that they thought it was going to get. So now they're trying to recoup. So what they pivoted to is, all right, y'all going to have to get some of these ads. And y'all going to have to give me a couple of dollars if I find out that y'all sharing passwords, because we got to recoup. Maybe when we were flush with cash, it didn't make sense. But now, coming out of this whole pandemic thing, we got to get that money back. That, to me, isn't giving up, because they set a particular goal or standard initially and had to move away from it. And I think a lot of business owners end up losing their business and in turn failing because they're looking at being strategic as giving up.
Yeah, 1000%, man. Just looking at my notes here, one thing that I was going to mention, and this is exactly what you're talking about: pivoting. You might have a great strategic plan that runs its course because it's trendy, it's popping, it's working. But when it stops, when that magic stops and fizzles out, you got to pivot to the next big play. You got to pivot to the next big move that's going to work for your venture. Like you said with Netflix, everything was working cool. But when you got Disney, when you got Hulu, when you got Amazon and all these other companies coming in the mix that's trying to eat off your plate, and you seeing your revenue going down because you had most of the market share, but now that many other companies is coming into your lane, the revenue is different. So now what you got to do, you got to pivot. So that's one of my big things: pivoting when something that maybe was working for you for a long period of time and it's not working, not pivoting fast enough.
I think that's like, I agree. The speed of the pivot does matter. And I think as a business owner, you got to kind of sort of check yourself and check your own ego in coming into it, because there are just certain things that you can't control. Like, in your regular career, you can control if you're only going to do certain functions within a company because you go and get a job that's doing the functions you want to do. As a business owner, you got to be able to do a little bit of everything. And where I do think folks fail, to the point of what you said, is by pivoting too late. I think that the masses and general knowledge just says the blanket statement of pivoting. But you got to be able to pivot fast, right? Like, in my business in real estate, for certain people, the market's changed, right? We've had conversations since we've been back talking about how I just don't think most real estate agents had to do much of anything. They may still have done some marketing and other things, but money was just flowing so much that some of that extra work you didn't have to do. Now, if you're still running your business in real estate like it's 2020 or 2021, it's going to hurt you going into 2023 because now you got to pivot and it's like, oh, I got to act like it's 2018, 2019 again, right? The speed of the pivot. If you pivot too late, then opportunities have been lost, the money's been lost. So that's a great point that I want to make sure that folks get. So my next question, this one's a little bit tougher, and I'm posing this to you and we're going back and forth, but it's not for you to, you have your own personal stance, but just in general, what do you feel like as entrepreneurs we can do to help other entrepreneurs understand that the world doesn't get to define their failure? Because some of the failure that exists isn't real failure. It's the perceived failure of the world. And as an entrepreneur, to what I would think that you would agree with as well, is that you have to push through. Like your family, not you specifically, but an entrepreneur's family might feel like, hey man, your business should be here. Right? So they've defined what they think failure is for you. And for certain people, if you're not mentally strong enough, you'll fold. And these people have nothing to do with your business. So from your perspective, what can entrepreneurs do to not let outside forces create fictional failure?
Man, two things. One, and if you're not already doing this, I suggest for you to do so. The people who may bring you noise, you got to block them out. I know you love them dearly. They may be close to you. They may be blood. They may be some of your closest friends. You got to block out all the noise, man, and you got to run your own race. That's number one. So you don't get sidetracked. So you don't get caught up in, anything that could throw your energy or your vibrations off. But also so that you can keep people out of your business. Some people may even throw stuff your way because they know too much of your business, either personal or what's going on in the inside of your business structures. Number two, we also got to get in our head that I'm gonna say this personally. Shout out to the guy Tiba Antoine. You know who he is. He mentioned this maybe 10, 12 years ago to me. When we was talking about cars and lifestyle. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Obviously a lot of us we get into our mode like, man, 3 to 5 years, I'm gonna be a billionaire. I'm gonna be on top.
Right.
Have my cake and eat it too. Man, look, I'm gonna run it up. I'm gonna run it up. And those 3 to 5 years, they come so quick. And he's like, man, what have I done? Like, I ain't there yet. And sometimes that can get you, that you can lose motivation and lose your steam off of it. But knowing like, man, in business, it's some people that had those unicorn businesses that like Facebook and stuff like that really hit it out the park. Man, you probably can hit the lottery 10 times quicker than you can have one of those unicorn businesses. That's how rare it is. So get it really in your head that like, hey, look, if I knock it out the park in 3 to 5 years, cool. But if I don't, not to be pressured that I'm failing because I'm not knocking it out the park. Most businesses go out of business within 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of businesses don't even last the first year. So really try to get in your mind like, all right, look, I'm trying to run a marathon. I'm trying to be around for the next 10 years, the next 20 years, 30, 40, 50, or whatever the case might be. And just looking at it like that and just having those type of lenses on rather than, short-term successes of trying to knock it out within the first couple years.
Great point. I think a great point. It's no sense in, I can't even add on to that because you spoke perfectly to it. So I'll transition right into my point. I think as an entrepreneur, you have the biggest thing that we don't focus on, right? So even on this show, we talk a lot about analyzing your business, strategizing, pivoting, all of that. You at first got to work on fixing yourself as a human.
Big one. Big one.
And that fits into your business completely, because you have to understand that if you don't, you're going to get swept up in the thoughts of other people. When I say other people, a lot of times I feel like in business, we only attribute that to family and friends. Other people can be businesses, right? It can be Wall Street for whatever industry you're in. It could be the market makers or whoever else. We get so caught up in that it throws you off, right? So you have to become so siloed. It's almost like, I'm a sports guy. You got to be the quarterback of your business, right? So you can't get too low if you throw a pick, right? But you can't get too high if you score a touchdown. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times, unfortunately, because people's personal mental health isn't in order, things can, like, their business could be going well and they could not be failing. But someone could come in and be like, such and such up the street got this product, why y'all ain't got it?
Yeah.
Right. And just that little message, or just the thought of, like, one of my favorite things I see from entrepreneurs is you can have 10 Yelp reviews and 9 of them is like, yo, this is the greatest business that's ever existed. And that one person is like, I can't lie, I don't like them. Like, you just like an entrepreneur will just stay kind of locked in there, like, yo, like, what you, like, come on, man, yo, can we get him on the phone? Can we send him a gift? Mind you completely forgetting the other 9 people that loved your business, but you just not understanding what's up with them. And what's funny to, I'm a parallel guy to tie it together. One of my guilty pleasure shows when I actually have time to watch TV, which isn't often, is a show called Out Chef. Long story short, they bring in somebody that's real good at cooking at home for their family and friends, and they make them cook with an Iron Chef. And you pick the best thing you can cook, and then they grab like 6 or 7 people off the street and say, we're gonna serve your dishes, see what happens. If if somebody picks you, you win money. But here's the key. Out of the 7 people, you just need one person to say that they like your dish better than the Iron Chef's dish, and you get $5,000. Just one, right? And the subtle lesson that taught me from an entrepreneurship perspective is that if you're building something from scratch, which in this case, this is somebody that's coming out, they ain't never cooked commercially, right? They doing something out of nowhere. They're building it from scratch. You just need one form of proof of concept.
Yep.
And everyone I've watched, when I tell you, let's say it's 7 people, 6 of them always pick the Iron Chef, 1 person picks them. That's all the proof of concept you need. But we get so caught up in who don't like me, who's in my comments on YouTube not showing love, who's DMing me slander. We have to move past that. So let me ask you this. Obviously, every entrepreneur, has a different family situation. You might have a relationship with a significant other. You might be married. You might have kids. You might be single, right? For entrepreneurs that have families, and I want to hone on this because for a single entrepreneur, you can make every mistake, make whatever decision you want to make. It only affects you. You can let it fly, right?
Mm-hmm.
For you as someone, you started your entrepreneurship journey before me. How do you leverage doing something that is so stressful day and night while maintaining a family? Because the other thing I realized as well is that there are a lot of entrepreneurs that their business didn't fail, but because of turmoil within their family, they folded. So in your opinion, without getting into your personal situation, what are certain things you think that can help an entrepreneur that's building something stay close with their, marital situation, significant other, children, etc.?
Man, a few things. I can mention on that. One is staying positive through the whole situation. If you're going through a rocky time, either inside the house or inside the business, sometimes it can affect either or. Having that positive mindset, staying level-headed, spiritual, to whatever your religion is. That helps as well. Praying. Um, Sometimes if your end goal isn't strong enough, you won't push through.
Mm.
That's a big one. Some things may motivate us temporarily, but when the tough times come, those things that motivate us, man, I don't care about that no more. We just give up on it. I think those things aren't your actual desires. When you got that burning desire, bro, you just keep going no matter what, and you just figure it out. You try to find a way to make things work when things aren't working. Either if it's in the household, or if it's with your significant other, or if it's within yourself, and try to do whatever you can to find the answers and find the solutions. Maybe between mentors, other people ask for help, or whatever the case might be, so that you can just push through it and get that W and get that win, or just find that strive and motivation and energy to keep going. I get low energy at times. I deal with a lot of times. I got a lot on my plate right now. But every time I go inside that box that shows me the things that I really desire, that I really want, it's like, man, look, I got to keep going. I got to find the energy from somewhere to keep going, because my whole life, my whole legacy is dependent on this moment. If I got to pivot, if I got to make any changes, if I got to get on my knees, do a bunch of praying, if I gotta go in a car and sit and have a woosah moment, I gotta do whatever I gotta do, man, so that I can reach this ultimate goal of how I want to leave my legacy, how I want the lifestyle to be for myself, my family, how I want the outlook of my business to be, and all of the above, bro. So that's my opinion. Again, these are all opinions, guys. It's coming from us personally. These I wouldn't say is actual facts, but
Yep.
I'm giving you guys some of the game and some of the stuff that I'm doing as well.
That's a fact. For me on my side, I'll give 2 pointed points. I'll say, starting with entrepreneurs that have children, whether it's children in a relationship or just an individual single parent. Um, you know, to understand that kids are smarter than you think, right? And have conversations with them so that they understand. Like, I can remember when I first started my entrepreneurship journey, it was like kind of, I don't want to say up and down, but there was some confusion on whether or not I felt like my daughter clearly had an understanding and was on board. And what I tried to do was, I guess, educate her on the differences. So one of the things that immediately kind of sort of upticked was the frequency at which I could pick her up and take her to school. So I always, had built in time to do that, right? But I could do it a lot more, So having that conversation to say, hey, well, I know you want to know why I'm deciding now to do this, such and such, or have this business or whatever. This affords me the opportunity to do this, right? This affords me the opportunity to be a part of this other situation within your journey, so that they have an understanding on what you're working for, right? Um, for significant others and why and spouses, and when I say significant others, I mean somebody that you've been seeing consistently. Okay, this
Yeah.
is not feedback for
Boyfriend, girlfriend.
yeah. You mess somebody up the Fridays. This is not for you. But the purpose for this, a lot of the issue I feel like entrepreneurs have in that family structure is proof of concept, right? So this person that you love, that you're so close to, that you want their support, before you judge automatically if they're supporting you or not, like before you kind of go over the top on it, the first thing you want to do is understand, have I shown this person the past the willingness, the heart, the work ethic, and the hunger to succeed? Because sometimes we get frustrated, right? Like if I lay on the couch all day and do nothing but play video games, and then tomorrow decide that I'm going to start $1 million business, I can't get mad that the person I'm in love with or the person I'm in a relationship with says, I mean, fam, I support you, but if you're going to go from laying on the couch every day to $1 million business, that's not hate. And I understand that from a business perspective and culturally, we've branded hate now. Everything that we don't want to hear is hate.
Mm-hmm. Any type of slander is hate.
Any kind of slander is hate. And in this case, I don't even necessarily think this is slander. It is proof of concept, right? And sometimes take a baby step, right? Instead of going to your partner and saying, I'm going to start this $1 million business tomorrow, go to them and say, hey, a couple nights a week, you might not see me for an hour because I'm writing a business plan. Like, start there and then grow, right? Not, yeah, man, I'm about to go and tell my boss tomorrow, yo, I'm finished. I ain't going to work anymore.
Right.
I'm going to figure it out on the fly, right? So transitioning into my last question on the topic, bro. So with that being said, the entrepreneurs that I feel like are making it right now, and I'm not putting a dollar quantifying on it. I'm not quantifying that financially. Excuse me. I'm not putting it in another on a social media following. But the people that are making it, to me, the one characteristic that I see is that they're all survivors. I don't care if it's a small business, as small as possible. I don't care if it's a $1 billion business. They're people that are made out of Teflon. Mm-hmm. My thought to you is, from what you see, do you feel like as an entrepreneur, you got to be willing to take the butt with it? Because I can tell you that I feel like if you're not prepared to get your butt kicked, don't mean that you're not doing good, right? But industries, businesses change every day, and some days just ain't gonna be good days. I think you'll fold faster if you're not a survivor. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, 1,000%, man. 1,000%, bro. You got to be able to get kicked in your face and get back up. You have to be. I mean, it's the same thing in life. Y'all gonna probably hear me say this a lot. Ebbs and flows. Get used to it, because it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen in life. It's gonna happen in business. It's gonna happen in marriage. It's gonna happen, when your kids acting up, or when they good or when they bad. Like, ebbs and flows. You got to be able to stick it out. You got to be keep moving. I mean, it's gonna be times where you fall flat. You gotta be able to pick yourself and keep moving. But that's going to come down to, again, how bad do you want it? How much do you want this particular life, or particular business, or particular lifestyle? Looking at it from a business perspective, how do you want to leave your legacy? That's all going to take into equate if you're really built for it. In this entrepreneurship world, in this business owners world, it's not going to be easy. And just know that going in, that, again, it may take a minute for you to get there, but if you keep pushing, keep going, keep pivoting, you'll eventually get there.
That's real. My last 30-second thought, and then we'll close out, is to your point. You like you said, you got to be willing to take a beating. And my advice is reevaluate how you look at the strategy of your business. Right. On the surface, you'll read a book or go on YouTube and somebody will tell you to have a 1-year plan, 3-year plan, 5-year plan, 8-year plan, 9-year plan, whatever. The furthest plan you're going to ever get from me is a quarter. Right. Realistically, I joke with people. I run my business day to day. So everything I'm doing today is so that I can wake up tomorrow, Lord willing, and open up shop again. I think some of the stress comes in when you start to set these long-term projections and you get worried about, well, am I on track for where I'm supposed to be in 2028? Like, we just came out of a pandemic where people lost their businesses completely. Yeah. You can't worry about what's going to happen in 5 years. You got to look at it like, hey, we got through October. Yep. Like, how we going to generate more money and make it happen in November? So that's my tidbit in closing this thing out, my guy.
Man, great one. Hopefully, you guys took some notes, was able to learn and pick up a little bit of bits and pieces from us both to be able to add to your repertoire that you're already doing. And if you got some comments on it, or if you got some other thesis, please leave it in the comments below, so that not only you can help others, but we're watching as well, because we're in the journey of entrepreneurship and growing ourselves. So we don't know everything. We're still learning and we're still studying. We're studying the game. We're in it. We're not one of those type of people that knows it all. So Look, each one teach one, and we're listening as well.
That's a fact. So just closing us out here. Once again, thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of My Network is My Net Worth. We appreciate y'all supporting us. Salute.
All right, man. We out of here.